Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the Musings from the Mount podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Carenza. When we recorded this episode, Los Angeles was dealing with some devastating fires, and that got us thinking about the process of rebuilding. And that naturally led us to consider money, both as an esoteric concept and the thing which you use to pay your electric bill. So this isn't your typical financial advice conversation. Rather, we're looking at money as crystallized life energy and asking some fundamental questions. What happens when we treat money as the object instead of understanding it as the tool for energy circulation? Why do wisdom traditions from completely different cultures all seem to agree that our relationship with material wealth is actually a spiritual test? And we tackle this idea that humanity is facing what's called the first initiation and proving that we cannot live by bread alone. So this is the kind of conversation that might completely shift how you think about success, security, and what it actually means to be rich. We hope you enjoy the episode. And if you do enjoy this podcast, please consider going to meditationmount.org and donating. Your donation helps us to bring you this podcast, as well as all the other programs the Mount produces, both today and in the future. We're incredibly grateful and honored by your support. All right, now back to the podcast. As we record this episode, and it may come out a little bit later, but as we're recording it, currently Los Angeles and various areas around it are fighting a very deadly fire, quite tragic. It's tearing up incredible acreage, houses and businesses, and you know we can't help but think after the dust settles, everything, you think about how do you rebuild, what's the cost, and it got us thinking about money and what is money. And from an esoteric perspective, we have to look at money from a couple different angles. First, I think it maybe helps to define it. I think if we just look at money as a store of value, but then what is value? So it's a store of energy, and from that perspective, if you think of money as a store of energy, it's really quite a simple thing. I mean, energy is everything. So, and if energy can't be created or destroyed, then we understand that money is just simply a manner of exchange of energy. But that's not really how we actually use the idea of money. It's certainly not how our economy is arranged around. What that is arranged around is almost the world's biggest faith-based religion, and that's it. That if you show up with a U.S. dollar, it's going to buy you a dollar's worth of something. So I'm just going to kind of kick this over to Michael and say, first of all, what from esoterically, for me, it's just a store of value, and of course, all signs, everything leads to Bitcoin, but we're not going to go down that road on this one.
Although we could have a look at crypto. The philosophy behind cryptocurrency, I think, is important to look at as a transition between different systems.
Yes, yeah.
So we could definitely do that.
And I think we could do a whole episode on the esoteric properties of Bitcoin, which I think might actually be a good episode. But really, though, I want to get money is a part of our everyday lives. It's certainly something most people go stress over and worry about quite a bit. It offers a status. It's so tied into everything. But what is it? What is money?
This is a huge topic, and it's very emotive. It also is a question of how we hold its importance in our life. How central is it to our notion of success in the world? For instance, you said, energy and money synonymous, really. Now, if I'm looking at my own body and I've got the blood in my body, my heart doesn't say, well, I'll offer a pint of blood to the highest bidder, the organ that can give me the most money. It's like an auction.
Yeah.
The health of a system is always measured in the free flow of energy. If that's love, If that's in nature, it would be the rivers flowing freely, it would be the air circulating freely, it would be the sap rising um, without impediment in the trees and the flowers. Circulation is the hallmark of a healthy system. Now, when you start to have value attached to something that we call money, which is really a representation of a densification of energy, then money becomes everything. We forget that it is a representation of energy, and the accumulation of money then becomes the object, rather than the right use of energy. Energy is there to promote the well-being of the body and the fulfilling of its destiny, its part in the greater scheme of things. That's how energy is used in Mother Nature. The flowers in the garden take energy from the sun, and what do? They produce beauty. What do we do with the energy that we take and earn in the form of money? I mean, this is huge. We can look at it in different ways. We can go back to the ponder on this book that we've drawn upon before. The Master, the DK, the Tibetan, has a few things to say on that. The Bible has a few things to say on money.
Mm.
The Quran has a few things to say on money. Agni Yoga has a lot to say on money, property, ownership, and how this needs to transition into a new way of being held. Because at the moment, we are in a society that has, if you like, banked everything on money.
Mhm.
If,
Yeah.
if something collapses, remember
Right.
back when the stock market crashed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what does it mean to lose money? Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, you said earlier.
Mhm.
How true. So what is it that falls apart when the stock market crashes? Well, part of it is error in speculation.
Mm.
So we get back to our money market sometimes is built on speculation.
Mm.
So before we go down that route and look at it, I'd like to step back and say, we as humanity are facing a major test at the moment to move to a new level of awareness and consciousness as a species. We've used this example before in other podcasts. In the Ageless Wisdom teaching, it said we're facing the first initiation. And the first initiation is to prove that man cannot live by bread alone, as it says in the Bible, which means that we have to show that the true sustenance of the soul, the true nourishment of our humanity is not materialism. It includes materialism, but that is not the source. That is not the golden calf that we worship in the desert. So what we can look at is, how do we overcome this addiction to the owning of energy for self and self-aggrandizement? And it goes back to how we look at success. What is a successful person? In some cultures, in most cultures, a successful person is those that have most. The biggest house,
Mm.
the most money, the biggest savings, the this or the that. Other cultures, it will be who has the biggest heart, who is the biggest caretaker of the community. So it's measured differently. At the moment, we measure success by using this barometer and this thermometer of how hot it is and how cold it is, how much wealth we have and how little wealth we have. So am I a rich man? What do I do? Do I check my bank account, or do I check my heart and say, am I full of gratitude? Am I full of this incredible gratefulness for being alive? And what are the riches in my life? They're the love of my family. They're the love of my friends and my community. That love is energy. But what we've done is we've made it a commodity. And at some point, I know, for instance, paper money. When I grew up in England, it said on the banknotes, I promise to pay the bearer of this note It was a promissory note. So you could basically go to the Bank of England, in theory, and demand that they give you whatever the equivalent in silver or gold.
Right.
But they couldn't
Yeah.
do that. They wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. It started out as a promise. Um,
Yeah.
so
So
we,
you would,
yeah,
from practical terms, so you wouldn't have to carry around a bunch of heavy coins or nuggets of gold around to make transactions. So there was a fairly logical kind of practical, philosophy behind why we ended up with paper money.
right. And now we have
and
credit
digital.
cards.
Yeah. Right. Right. We and so there is that always that balance of, okay, yeah, so it's not necessarily, there's nothing wrong with inherently with money or with any of these things. It's just, it's like anything, it's in how you use it and what you attach to.
So just to complete the big picture,
Yeah.
we said that we're facing this test to show that we don't live by bread alone, that there are other levels of sustenance.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about when we did the one on Scorpio, the tests of Scorpio, because the tests of Scorpio have to do with the whole of the development of human consciousness. It's the evolution of our species is governed by the tests of Scorpio. And Scorpio, just to remind ourselves, is the Hercules representing the soul of humanity, has to overcome the serpent of desire, the nine-headed hydra. And this nine-headed hydra, 3 heads are associated with the physical, 3 with the emotional, and 3 with the mental plane. The physical tests for the hydra are sex, physical comfort, and money. So money actually is a test. And the test is right relationship with it. It's like the Buddha, when the Buddha talked about non-attachment. He said, don't think that having something is bad. It's you being attached to it that's going to keep you chained to the wheel of rebirth.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So we're not saying money's bad. There's this famous quote that people like to use from the Bible, and money is the root of all evil, or the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know that evil has also been translated as sin.
Right.
And sin, in its original meaning, is separation. So any time that we act out of separation from the, if you like, the principles of our soul, then we sin.
Right.
We're separate.
I think that really gets home. That's a beautiful translation. Love of money is the root of all separation.
The love of money is the root of all separation because it's the love of a form.
Right.
Rather than the indwelling life that is using that form to represent itself.
Right.
So you started off the question of what is money? Well, what does money represent? Money represents energy, life energy, chi. It's crystallized chi.
Right.
And if I take some money into a store, if I take my credit card into a store, I can exchange it for goods. So early on in our civilization and other mature civilizations have actually used barter, the exchange of goods, the trading. But when you start to get money as the, if you like, the bridge between things, the bridge can get out of proportion.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, though, because otherwise we could just sort of meander around here, is to start off by just quoting from the Ponder on This, on what the Tibetan has to say about money. And then I'd like to even dive into what the Quran has to say and what Agni Yoga has to say. So, here it starts out. The love of money is the root of all evil. This throws us back on the fundamental weakness of humanity, the quality of desire. Of this, money is the result and the symbol. So we've precipitated money. We've created money in order to have access to energy.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you can steal it, you can hoard it, you can do whatever you like based on your principles and your values in life. So the society that we live in, the system, the financial system, is a reflection of how we treat each other and our current values and principles. So he goes on to say, desire demands the satisfaction of sensed need, the desire for goods and possessions, the desire for material comfort, for the acquisition and accumulation of things, the desire for power, and the supremacy which money alone can give. This desire controls and dominates human thinking. It is the keynote of our modern civilization. It is also the octopus, which is slowly strangling human life, enterprise, and decency. It is the millstone around the neck of mankind.
Mm.
So we've unleashed a monster.
Yeah, we certainly have. And it is interesting to see how, again, this 2025 being the year of the reckoning, the unveiling, the revealing. And, in so many senses, we see that happening in the area of money too. I mean, we made it through this worldwide pandemic, and it brought into a lot of questions, like, what's more important? Like, if you're sitting at home by yourself and you don't have any family, you don't have any community, you don't have any friends, but you have a lot of money, or maybe you don't have a lot of money. I mean, it really does. Who is really the rich person? The person that was able to surround themselves with support and community and friends and make it through that time, or those that were just absolutely lonely, even if they were wealthy. I know a lot of friends, a lot of people who were very wealthy and were going crazy because they were just alone in their, you know.
Well, actually, you just reminded me of something 25 years ago. A colleague and I were invited to co-facilitate a conference on true wealth in Dharamshala, India. And it was a gathering of spiritual teachers, social workers, and business people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the highlights was that a group of us went and had a 2-hour audience with the Dalai Lama. And we asked him, what is true wealth? And he basically said, financial wealth, there is a limit to how much you need. And above that, you should just give it away because it's an excess.
Mm-hmm.
You just need you take what you need, and the rest you pass on, you give it away. He said, but wealth as wisdom is limitless, and you should seek to acquire that endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
But the pursuit of money, no, when you've gained a certain amount, it's like, when I go down and put some gas in my car, when it's full up, I stop pumping.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's dangerous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, that always ties back to something that we know about ourselves, is to know thyself. I mean, if if you really know yourself, you understand what your gas tank is and what you need it to be full in order to be the best version of you, to get to be the best transmuter of energy.
And we're not here to sort of pass moral judgment.
No, not at all.
But just there's some basic principles. For instance, if I take more than I need, that's being greedy.
Yeah.
Nature doesn't take more than it needs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating thing that humans are the one kind of species on this planet that continually takes more than it needs. Yeah.
But we're under this illusion that in order to get something, you have to take.
Mm-hmm.
But the spiritual law says in order to receive, you have to give.
Right.
And there is this wonderful phrase we've used before, to those that give, more shall be given, so that they may give again, which goes back to that we then sign up to be part of the circulation and the maintaining of the circulation of energy, and not become a blockage or a hoarder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is antithetical to basically how our cultural financial system works.
There is enough food in the world, enough water, and there's enough everything in the world. It's all a question of right distribution and right circulation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are people who say, well, God, in political terms, it sounds very much like socialism or communism or whatever ism it is.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't. It's simply right relationship with self, with others, with energy. When you take greed out and say, well, what do I really need?
Well, that's a very good question, because I mean, that's going to be different for everyone. But I think we're specifically addressing in this, if you're listening to this podcast, you're one of the people who are on the spiritual path, and it's a question that has to be addressed if you're on this path. It's like, what do you really need? And I think it comes up later in the ponder on this about what actually does one need if you're on this journey.
Right.
So,
Well, let's read the next
Okay.
paragraph then, Joey. He goes on to say, there are, however, large numbers of people whose lives are not dominated by the love of money and who can normally think in terms of the higher values. They are the hope of the future, but are individually imprisoned in the system which, spiritually, must end. Though they do not love money, they need it and must have it. The tentacles of the business world surround them. They too must work and earn the wherewithal to live. The work they seek to do to aid humanity cannot be done without the required funds. So we're inside a system that we're seeking to break free of, and yet we need the energy coming out of it to give us the energy to break free of it, unless we just go totally cold turkey.
Right. I mean, I feel that way about food too. I wish I could just eat, take a pill and then get everything I need, but it doesn't work that way.
Well, when we have learned to assimilate energy, we can breathe the air. Breatharians take prana and chi out of the air. Once again, it's energy. We're talking about money, which is the most dense form of energy. Prana, that infuses the air you and I are breathing right now, is energy. It's ever present,
Yeah,
but
it's
we
so
can't
abundant.
access it.
Yeah.
We can't access
Yeah,
it.
we don't have we're just not.
Don't have the equipment yet.
That's right. But we're hopefully.
Well, that's it, a refined consciousness. That's why saints, you read about some people who no longer drink or eat. They just live in prayer because they are sustained by spiritual food, soul food.
Yeah.
So this is where we find ourselves. We're in this transition between these two eras, these two systems. But at the moment, because we've set up a system that is dependent on all of us buying into it and paying into it, and it paying us, we're not free yet. We're imprisoned, even though we may seek to change it. So this is the test. So another paragraph here by the Tibetan says, the aspirant, the seeker, has an appreciation of the occult value of money and service. He seeks nothing for himself save that which may equip him for the work to be done, and he looks upon money and that which money can purchase as something which is to be used for others and as a means to bring about the fruition of the plan, the divine plan, the plan of the soul. And then he begins to sense those plans. Only he who desires naught for himself can be a recipient of financial bounty. Now there's a sort of, what?
Yeah. That is a good
Only he
question.
who desires naught for himself can be a recipient of financial bounty and a dispenser of the riches of the universe. That goes back to the Chinese proverb of power. You can have as much power as you like as long as you don't keep it for yourself. Once again, it's energy. You can wield limitless energy as long as you're wielding it for the common good. Then you're part of the circulatory system. You've not siphoned it off.
Yeah.
A lot of people have siphoned stuff off, and they've got their own little reservoirs.
That's right. Yeah.
No moral judgments being made here, just observations.
Just observations.
Observations.
Right. Yeah.
So, in other cases where riches increase, they bring with them naught but sorrow and distress, discontent and misuse. I guess this is the illusion where you think that money can buy you love. And I remember that was one of the first Beatles songs that I grew up with. Money can't buy you love.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I mean, they wrapped it up, put a bow on it. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, you can have all the money in the world and be the most miserable, lonely person, and you can have nothing and be filled with love and community and great beauty. We're not definitely not trying to be naive, and we're not trying to be woo or anything like that. But it's one of the hardest topics to really discuss and approach, because it's one of those topics that it sort of tries to pit the brain and the heart against each other.
Right. There's a couple more sentences just to complete.
Yeah, let's read them.
Remember that money is the consolidation of the loving, living energy of divinity, and that the greater the realization and expression of love, the freer will be the inflow of that which is needed to carry forward the work. You are working with the energy of love and not with the energy of desire, the reflection or distortion of love. Just as money has been in the past the instrument of men's selfishness, now it must be the instrument of their goodwill. So basically, it's turning this on its head and saying, the way to receive is to be loving.
Mm-hmm.
Because love attracts. Love's a magnet. And what it attracts you is not just purely for you. It's so that you can use it as part of your life's mission to be of service and to be a force for good in the world.
Yeah.
If you're not in that mindset, and if you're still self-centered and needing to aggrandize the self, you're going to see the acquisition of money as the need to bolster, to maintain a self-image, a status in other people's eyes. In the end, it's the heart that judges whether you are rich or poor. As you said earlier, how many friends do you have?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's friends in a community is like money in the bank.
Yeah.
Not just because of companionship, but in times of trouble, they'll help you.
Yeah.
The community works together. It shares its energy. So one of the things we've talked about before, Joey, is in this new world that we're seeking to build upon these principles that we work with here at Meditation Mount of essential divinity, goodwill, and unanimity. We said that the characteristics and qualities of this new society, this new civilization, if you're going to boil it down to a couple of words, will be caring and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing has to do with the giving and the continuous free flow of circulation of energy. And caring is coming from the heart.
Mm-hmm. And that does dovetail into the whole founding principles and operating principles that we try to adhere to here at Meditation Mount. And that does bring into interesting questions, because it does address in the Alice Bailey books, it does acknowledge that money is necessary to operate in the system that we live in, but we do see that, man, could it make things difficult,
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that it says in the Tibetan's writings is that you should aim for like a lean organization.
Mm-hmm.
That is not overly centralized, and all the money goes to funding
Right. Which is actually what nonprofits are supposed to do. It doesn't, it doesn't really end up that way in I think most nonprofits, believe it or not. I mean, like we're pretty good here actually in terms of, most everything goes towards paying to be open and
paying to be open and paying insurance, but also paying for staff.
Yeah.
And it's
so it can be open.
And DK says you have to pay a reasonable salary.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in corporate America, the factory worker and the CEO, the disproportionate salaries, it was obscene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know people go on strike to demand more. Mm-hmm. And it's this whole thing of demanding and desiring. There's nothing wrong if you don't have to request a fair salary, a fair wage.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we understand that society is not set up for the fair distribution of resources. It's not set up that way
No,
at
it's
the
not.
moment.
Yeah.
Now you have thrift stores, you have got community food banks, you've got
Mm-hmm.
things where you're beginning to look at caring and sharing showing up in small forms,
Mm-hmm.
but they're usually only wheeled out in cases of emergency.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
They're not the standard.
But I think it's good to point out that, this discussion, we're not necessarily saying anything new that hasn't been
No.
discussed ad nauseum. But what is different is that the time that we live in, and this is what's important for anyone that's going to be around for the next 5-10 years, is the world's going to have a new paradigm that we've never seen before, and that's where, in a lot of cases, it's not going to be the factory worker that is going to be in trouble necessarily. I mean, we're always going to need people to move things and to do things, but with AI, it's going to take away a lot of jobs that used to be sort of very safe, very safe, well-paid jobs. Not going to be necessary anymore.
So
You know.
if most of my life
Mm-hmm.
is to work so I can earn, so I can live,
Mm-hmm.
when you take away that need, what have you got left? You've got time
Yeah.
and space. What do you fill it with? Golf? No.
Yeah.
It's creativity,
You hope so. You would hope so. I
artistry
hope so.
of all kinds, because the whole idea of incarnation is to reveal the truth, the goodness, and beauty of the indwelling life.
Right.
And how do we do that? We sing together, we play together, we build together, we do all these things together. But at the moment, our society is not set up to utilize time and space as the opportunity for the creative expression of the soul of our one humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember when I was working in the corporate world, one particular person said to me how much they hated coming into work. And I said, well, why don't you quit?
Mm.
Oh, no, I've got to hang on for 5 more years and then I can get my pension.
Mm-hmm.
They just sentenced themselves to 5 years in jail.
Mm-hmm.
They were miserable,
Yeah.
but they were hanging in there because in the end, then they're going to get a pension. And then what they're going to do once they're not working, they're
Yeah,
going
that
to
is the
try and figure
question.
out what to do with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
We used to call that golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
You're unable to move because, yeah,
Right. You just
you're manacled, you're
yeah,
shackled.
your lifestyle, your desires, your sense of who you are in proportion is so tied to this number in a bank account. So.
You said that there are a lot of quotes from the different religions and philosophies and the ageless wisdom teaching, and they all sort of link in and sort of support each other. So I'd like to use a couple of quotes from the Agni Yoga teachings.
Yeah, good.
And these come from like 1925, 1926. They're way back.
Yeah.
And in the Agni Yoga teaching, it says, Christ advised to distribute spiritual wealth. But as the keys to it are far away, people have applied this advice towards the distribution of pillaged money. First to steal and then to give away with a tear and become enraptured by one's own goodness. As if in speaking of distribution, the teacher could have had in mind chairs and old coats. The teacher meant imponderable wealth. Only the spiritual gift can move the cup of the scales. He said, we got it wrong. What we're supposed to share is love, compassion,
Mm-hmm.
support.
Mm.
So he's saying, yes, you can share the riches, but sometimes those riches come from what you've stolen.
Yeah, I think it's and when that was written, it was an interesting time in history too. There was
It was
the
before
robber barons,
yeah,
like
exactly.
the incredible wealth, industrial wealth was being created.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I want to read some more from the Agni Yoga because it is provocative,
mm-hmm.
but it's provocative, like it's calling us to something. It's provoking us. It's calling us to action. Then it goes on to say, in the period of the abolition of money, It is urgent to replace its power by affirmation of the Spirit's power to help. Knowledge must finally build scientifically the bridge of aspiration towards the Spirit. The abolition or the abolishment of the use of money will free humanity from the blinders that impair its vision. There are moments of evolution when the walls we erect to contain conventional knowledge become obstacles. The time has come for the emancipation of knowledge and the assumption of personal responsibility for its use.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah,
before
yeah,
Wikipedia. This is
yeah.
before AI. This was back in,
Mhm.
this was 1929 that was written.
Yeah.
So it then goes on to say, at a certain stage of the human consciousness, it can be observed when, to the question of what is needed, the following answer is given: money. So you can measure where we're at in consciousness when you ask the question, what's needed?
Mhm.
So long as this mercenary limitation is not outlived, no spiritual help can be provided. One's consciousness must be advanced toward more significant values, then help will come, even materially. The
Mhm.
law of the highest values is affirmed in the whole of existence. Thus, our own consciousness determines the well-being that is deserved. Um, I find
Mm.
these are prescient. They're talking about in a future civilization. We haven't reached that. We're not free from the system that we are currently enmeshed in.
Mhm.
It'll be unreasonable and unrealistic to think we can break free of it overnight.
Mhm.
We're in transition,
Yeah.
in the letting go. Because one of the things the Agni teaching talks about is the future civilization where will be no personal property.
Mm.
It'll be all communal.
Mhm.
Theft will be abolished with the elimination of privately owned property.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, it's hard to
I,
wrap your head around that now, but
I-
when if you're able to get to that place where and we are certainly approaching the first real chance at that, um, feasibly. If we're, through robotics and through AI and through the abundance of energy, these might be problems that we are blessed with. This overabundance might be something that we are
well,
best to deal with. So it'll be interesting.
so he's talking about the liberation from the shackles we're
Yeah.
in, and the reason you're shackled is because you believe you need it.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's always coming back to attachment to form, isn't
it
it?
is, and it goes. I sense that the teaching may become a heavy hammer for timid ones.
Hmm.
Even recently, terror would have pierced the heart at the very mention of community.
Mm.
But already now, several obstacles have been overcome. So people are understanding community is not a political thing. We're talking about just being good neighbors.
Mhm. And the nature of community is ever shrinking in our ever connected world. So
Yeah.
when this was written, the concept of being in community with someone sitting in their bedroom in Prague,
Yeah.
in Ghana, in Australia, all at the same time, that was not something that was even fathomable.
No.
So
Well, this was written in
right,
1926, this
yeah,
particular paragraph. And it says, then it goes on to say, yet one more difficult trial for humanity follows the discarding of the worn out concept of property.
mhm,
So it's basically saying, okay, so you're bumped up against community, and what about me? And you mean I
mhm,
got to be part of we? Um,
mhm,
now you wait till you bump up against property
mhm,
and the property rights.
mhm. Yeah,
Um, Now, for a lot of people listening to this, it could seem like heretical.
yeah.
But what we're just saying is that if you're looking at energy and the health of a system as the free flow and the free circulation of energy around a system, what system of governance, what system of relationship, what political system, what system of just common sense do you put in place to allow the free flow of energy
Mhm,
around the human species?
mhm,
So let us also not forget another quality indispensable on the path. 1937, this was written: non-attachment to property. Avarice in general is nowhere fitting. This quality holds one back to the lower spheres. The attachment of a miser is an insurmountable obstacle. While it is not easy to renounce property, avarice is indeed the most grave condition of plunging into the abyss.
Mm.
So anyway, there's more about that, but it just points at that. And I think the final Agni Yoga quote will just be, like an overview that was given in 1926 of the state of the world at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Contemporary industry and the entire production of objects has become so unbalanced in quantity and quality that for the time being they preclude the possibility of a proper distribution of things. Forcible and indiscriminate distribution engenders craftiness and lies.
Mm.
Can one expect new possibilities in inaction, or should one deepen the consciousness in its essence? You remember the words of Buddha about the disciples surrounded with things, yet consciously renouncing personal ownership. It is useless to try to take away objects forcibly and thus create a passion for trash.
Mm.
The most important thing is to carry out rationally an education program on the debasing significance of possession. When liberated from craftiness, people will learn of the impracticality of personal ownership. Then a collective of co-workers will grow up. Now, this will scare a lot of people who are still in the, hey, I need to show that I am something in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's a lot of trigger points in there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously a philosophy that is aspirational, and
Yep.
it's also presupposes a bunch of things have happened. There's been an evolution of consciousness. There's been an evolution of awareness, mindfulness, compassionate, an evolution of empathy. All of these things have taken place in order to have that space. It's like when you watch a Star Trek, and you're like, okay, so no one really you have your own couple things in your room, but you don't, you're a steward of this system that is on the ship. You are part of this system, and you're a steward of it, as opposed to how we are seem to be running our own separate programs now. Like instead we're running a program together, and it's easy to say, that because that concept has been manipulated and used to relieve people of their goods and their services. Since that has been written,
that's the word craftiness and lies.
Yeah.
It's said that there are people who game the system.
Sure.
I mean, look at 20, 30 years ago, all the big multi-level marketing, the pyramid schemes,
those are still,
all of that stuff.
Those are still around. And as we talked about crypto earlier, like there's like you can create a coin and do a rug pull. That's what's happening now. And
right, but the thing about we'll just dip briefly into it. The philosophy behind cryptocurrency is the decentralization of the control.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, if when we get into to touch on Bitcoin a little bit, the interesting thing about that is that it's there's a transparency that never existed before, and it relies on right human relations, and it relies on consensus, and yet you're still allowed to have your Bitcoin.
That's it. So it's a transitory thing, and it may be a transit for 100 years or 1,000 years, who knows? But in the end, there is one body, there is one life force,
right,
and it is seeking to flow and nourish the whole of the system.
Exactly.
Who's getting in the way? Anybody that says, hey, that's mine. I want that for myself. Now, that, as you say, is the ideal. How do we close the gap between current reality and this ideal? It's going to take a lot of maturing, overcoming fear, shifting our measure of success from the accumulation of wealth to the ability to love, the ability to care. The expansion of the heart is the greatest treasure house. The greater our heart expands, the more treasure we can hold. And that treasure is simply to be circulated, not to be hoarded. Otherwise, we go back to the tales of the fiery dragon inside the caves, watching over this mountain of gold.
Right.
That is the serpent of the lower self. That's the serpent of desire. That's another version of the Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
It's the dragon guarding the gold. Nobody's going to take this gold from me.
Mm-hmm.
Whose gold is it?
That's a good question.
But I worked all my life for this. Yeah,
Yeah.
but whose gold is it? Whose life is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really that's sort of the deeper questions that when money brings up, that's where it hits home for everybody. Is
Yeah.
it makes you really do a gut check about where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, because at the moment, if you go back to a quote from Agni Yoga, do not live on income from money. This profit is stained. The
Mm.
best interchange of goods is by direct exchange of objects, or if necessary, they can be allowed to be exchanged into money to be reconverted immediately. Now, that's Agni Yoga written in 1925, but then that same sentiment is in fact reflected if you go back and look at the Quran.
Mm.
Because it says in Islam, money functions strictly as a medium of exchange. This means it shouldn't be used as a currency to buy the things we want and need. It should be only used as a currency to buy the things we want and need. Money has no foundational value in and of itself, so you cannot charge for its use like other assets. This is where the whole thing of under Sharia law, interest is not allowed.
Mm.
It's prohibited
Mm-hmm.
because it benefits one party at the expense of another.
Mm-hmm.
So in all of these religious teachings, there is truth,
Mm-hmm.
but then that gets distorted by how you
Yeah,
impose the law
exactly.
and apply the law.
Right. Yeah. And who is the arbiter and who is the executioner? And there is plenty of philosophical issues that come up with everything, and I think that's sometimes where you can get tripped up if you're a esoteric searcher, if you're on this path, and you realize that there is a whole level of evolution that this is describing that we haven't got to yet.
So the liberation from the imprisonment of matter and money doesn't mean I should not have money. It
Right.
means that I am the alchemist who's
Mhm.
charged with the redeeming of the lead into gold. Funnily enough,
Yeah.
I got to create gold out of this, but
That's
it's
right.
the gold of wisdom.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can't run away from it.
Mhm.
I have to be the agent of change itself. And the first thing that has to change is my relationship to energy, my relationship to money. I have to understand what is right relationship between me, others, and the whole system of life, my own ecosystem, and the greater ecosystem. And what does it mean to be a good steward? You used that term earlier. What does it mean to be an energy steward?
It's a good question, and that's that's something we try to get at and embody here. As a meditation mount, it's very much in the nomenclature. We talk about ourselves as stewards of this place, not we don't have the CEO of this place. We don't look at it like that way. And the way the way that you are a steward, you know, you've said this before that you're sort of the god of your own body, this universe, this environment inside of yourself. You are the god to all those cohabiting communities inside of your own self. If you expand that forward to both your place of work, your friendships, your family, and you realize you are really just the steward of these systems, and it's up to you to maintain the health of this system.
And what in the end gives the greatest pleasure is to be able to give and see it flower.
Mhm.
See the product of your giving flower in a community, in a community garden.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not to oversimplify, but I mean we just we have two dogs, and one of them, Sunny, is a very reactive, traumatized dog. She's I mean she is a big 85-pound German Shepherd and can't be around other dogs, and she's a lot. I mean, she's we got her as a rescue. We've had her for 2 years, and it's been a lot of work. I mean, it takes a lot of work every single day. And I never thought that she would be able to be around another dog. And then we ended up getting this little dog a couple of weeks ago, and it is the most beautiful thing to see. This being able to experience play and joy. And we're like a steward of that system.
It's interesting you should mention that change in the relationship of the two dogs, because when we talk about this first initiation and proving that we don't live by bread alone, it's said that the key to, if you like, passing this initiation and unshackling ourselves from the prison of matter is when the presence of love is born within the cave of the heart. That is the key.
Mm,
It's not getting rid of the money, it's unlocking the power to love
mm,
and for love to be present.
yeah.
Because love is the true currency of all relationship. If we're talking about currency, it's not measured in pounds or dollars or rupees or
Yeah.
rubles. It's measured in the flow of love from one being to another. Because if love is all there is, and love is that which is seeking to circulate throughout the universe, what right have we got to stop its flow?
Mm,
When we wake up to the fact of being a good steward is to ensure that the flow of love continues to circulate freely through my being, through the being of my family, my community, my neighborhood, the planet.
mm,
That takes stewardship to a very active, dynamic, loving um, responsibility. I often said, I don't own anything. Here at the Mount, all I own is the responsibility to be a good steward.
mm-hmm.
That's all I own.
Right.
The rest I'm given in order to do the work.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a beautiful way to look at it. And it's interesting though when you've gotten to that place where you really embody that, and people are like, "Oh, that doesn't work," and like, "Oh, but you know what? It really does." I've had that same sort of experience these past almost 7 years now, and when your life is not arranged around material things, and you lead with the principle and ideal, it's amazing how the material things will come. They'll show up when needed.
Well, Joey, you and I know that in the community of people that are addicted,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get your fix, to get what you need, you
Yeah,
steal, you do whatever
you somehow do what you somehow get what you need, one way or another.
Therefore, you're going to rip off the system
Mm-hmm.
in some form or another.
Yeah.
We're not here to rip off the system. We're not here to rip off each other.
Yeah.
We're here to ensure the free, unimpeded circulation of life energy through the system, whether it be our own family, our own local community, or the planet itself. That is the assignment. That's basic healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about healthcare.
Right.
Healthcare is the free circulation of life energy, of chi throughout a body.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about upgrading and rethinking healthcare, I would say stewardship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Loving kindness.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would, including I think a lot of physicians and doctors, would love to be a part of that system.
Yeah.
Where like your true calling, your true function is to take care of people, and of course you're taken care of as well. But at least the doctors I know in my life, their biggest frustration is that they can't do more doctoring. They spend most of their time doing paperwork.
Right, and they're allowed 15 minutes
Yeah.
per patient, and the insurance companies will tell them what's possible.
Yeah.
Well, we've painted ourselves into a corner, so we can't die in this corner.
Right.
We got to break free.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole year of 2025 is. It's the opportunity to enter into a whole new way of living together based on caring and sharing, taking those first steps. And we're going to bump up against some of these well-established facades and systems that are not based on those principles and values, but we've put in place And we've become, if you like, beholden to them. We become dependent on them.
Mm.
So how do we quit our dependency on something we know is unhealthy, but we've actually chosen to plug into it for the time being,
Mm-hmm.
for our sustenance? It goes back to the matrix. How do we unplug ourselves from the matrix
Yeah.
and create a society from a heart-based place?
Mm.
I mean, we started this exploration as an exploration of money, but it's more than exploration of money. It's really about, why are we here?
Right.
Are we here to give birth to the promise that lives in the heart and the mind of this creative being, about whom naught can be said?
Mm.
And most of our life is spent maintaining the body, maintaining the system.
Mm-hmm.
And very little free space is given to the creativity that lives at the heart of who we are. When 90% of our energy is just keeping the body alive,
Mm.
and if that's all we see, the function of life is, then it's going to become very monotonous, and it has become drudgery, and it will feel like we're chained to the wheel of rebirth. We're like this donkey sort of
Mm-hmm.
trudging around in a circle, turning the millstones to grind the grain,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because we are still living by bread.
Yeah.
We got to grind the grains to make the bread,
Right.
and we can't live by bread alone.
It's one of my favorite phrases, axioms, ideas, concepts. Um, we can't live by bread alone.
And the beauty of that in the Bible story is that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and Bethlehem actually means the house of bread.
Mm. Yeah.
Bethlehem. So how do we go from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, which is the city of peace,
Mm.
the city of well-being? Wow. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds strange to say about building New Jerusalem, but that vision was, William Blake had that vision
Mm-hmm.
of a New Jerusalem,
Mm-hmm.
but it goes beyond any religious limitations.
Right.
The New Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Salem, peace,
Mm-hmm.
Shalom, peace.
Yeah.
It's, how do we create a place of peace? The only way to build a temple of peace is by love. Caring and sharing
Mm-hmm.
are the building tools for the
Yeah.
temple of peace.
Yeah. And this starts at home. I mean, this
Yeah.
starts with, I mean, you don't have to change the world. You can change, something in your own life, which may end up changing the world.
And my final thought is that you may not have money in your pocket, but what you've got in your heart is a limitless resource of love that can nourish and sustain everyone whom you meet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Give of it freely. And remember, to those that give, more shall be given,
Mm-hmm.
so that they may give again.
Yeah.
You become an agent of circulation of the one life.
Yeah. Oof. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap this one up. We really appreciate everyone being here. We hope everyone is safe, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you, Michael.